Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into some really fascinating sources, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
We're looking at materials that present, well, a very particular perspective on Donald Trump, a sort of counter-narrative.
That's right.
And our mission, just to be clear up front, isn't about agreeing or disagreeing. It's about understanding what these specific sources are claiming, especially these stories of personal generosity they highlight.
Exactly. So the source material we've got includes bits from an article called Donald Trump's Good Deeds Are in Quite a Title.
Yeah, definitely makes a statement.
And also a transcript from a YouTube channel, Aquarius Wave, titled Trump is the Good Guy. He was chosen by God. So yeah, strong perspective.
Okay, so strong claims indeed. And again, just really want to stress, we're focusing only on what's in these sources. We're not validating, not refuting, just laying out the narrative they build. It's about seeing their argument.
Right. And it's interesting how they start. Both sources seem to kick things off by responding directly to criticism.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too. They quote Jamie Lee Curtis saying things like, he does not care about anybody but Donald J. Trump, and he's never demonstrated anything.
And these sources basically frame their whole argument as like a direct rebuttal to that specific viewpoint. They're setting out to debunk it.
Okay, so what's the core argument then? What are they actually trying to say?
Well, the central idea, really, across both is that, contrary to that criticism, Trump has this history of what they call selfless service and, good deeds. And they really emphasize that a lot of this stuff happened, private before he was even in politics.
Right, out of the spotlight.
Exactly. And the YouTube source, it goes even further. It says the biggest lie people believed was that he was, evil or selfish.
Yeah.
And it suggests that if people really saw who he was, quote, he would be seen as a person for the...
So they're not just saying he did nice things sometimes. They're arguing it reflects his fundamental character.
Pretty much, yeah. And they back this up with a lot of specific stories, anecdotes, many from before he was president.
Okay, so let's dig into those. These good deeds seem to be the foundation of their whole argument, right?
Absolutely. They form the core evidence presented. We can probably group them a bit. How about starting with medical and health assistance? There are several.
Okay, yeah. What stands out in that category? Any specific examples they really lean on?
Well, one really vivid one they mention is from 1988. They claim he used his private jet, personally arranged it, to fly a 3-year-old kid with a rare breathing problem from L.A. to New York.
Wow. Okay. For treatment.
Yeah, for specialized treatment. So it's not just money, it's like direct logistical help.
That's quite involved. What else?
There's also a story, it's undated, about an Army veteran with stage 3 bladder cancer. Apparently the family was worried sick about the bills. And the sources claim Trump just, privately paid for all of it, the whole treatment.
Privately. So not something done for publicity, according to them.
That's the implication, yeah. That seems to be a running...
Okay. Any other medical one?
Yeah, a couple more. In the 1990s, they say he paid $30,000 for his pilot's wife's breast cancer treatment, and then apparently continued to cover extra care after that.
$30,000 plus more.
Right. And another one from the 1980s, a little boy needed heart surgery. Family couldn't get insurance coverage. Trump supposedly stepped in and paid for the surgery.
So stepping in where systems failed, is that...
Seems like it. Oh, and one more, also 1980. A bit different, paying to fix the elevators in Harlem Hospital. More like infrastructure support for the community.
Interesting. So a mix of very personal medical crises and then something more community-focused. It paints a picture of, consistent intervention, at least according to these sources.
Definitely. They use these varied examples to suggest it wasn't just a one-off thing.
Okay, so that's health. What about, financial help or housing? Do they have stories in that area, too?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And again, the focus is often on these sort of private, significant acts.
Like what?
Okay, so back in 1986, there's a story about an elderly... Her husband had passed away, suicide, and the family farm was about to be taken. $77,000 debt.
That's awful.
Yeah. And the claim is Trump paid off that entire debt, $77,000, to the family farm.
Keep their home. Wow.
Then there's the Jennifer Hudson story from 2008, after that horrible tragedy where she lost her mother, brother, and nephew.
Yeah, I remember that. Horrible.
The claim is Trump housed her family members in Trumptown, as the source puts it, for a long time. No cost to them at all.
Providing shelter during a crisis.
Exactly. Then there's stories about helping just sort of random people in need.
Random people. How so?
Well, one from the 1990s. He supposedly stopped on a New Jersey highway to help someone whose car broke down.
Just stopped his car.
Yeah. Apparently got talking, found out the person had money troubles, medical issues. And the story goes, he sent them a check later to cover all of it.
Just like that, according to the source, yeah. And another similar one from the 1980s, he supposedly saw a news report about a family in New York, lost their home in a fire, dad was sick, homeless.
Oh, terrible.
And again, the claim is he just privately sent a check. Covered housing, medical costs, no fanfare.
These really emphasize him acting kind of spontaneously based on need countered or heard about.
Yeah, that seems to be the angle. Oh, and then there's the really famous one, maybe you've heard it, the limo breaking down.
Vaguely. Remind me.
Okay, 1995, again, New Jersey highway. His limo gets a flat tire. A motorist named George stops and helps change.
Okay.
As a thank you, Trump allegedly found out where George lived and paid off his entire house mortgage.
The whole mortgage. How much was it?
The source says over $100,000.
Wow. Okay, that's a big gesture for changing a tire.
It's certainly presented that way. And one more in this vein, pre-2000s, he apparently met a homeless woman, offered her housing in a Trump building, like indefinitely, paid for it, and even arranged for fresh flowers for her every day. Flowers every day, that's specific.
It is. These stories together, they really paint a picture of someone stepping in, often in a big way, for individuals facing financial or housing hardship.
Yeah, it's a pretty extensive list.
Yeah.
So we've got health, we've got finances and housing. Did the sources mention anything about him intervening in, like, mental health crises or moments of, extreme personal distress?
They do, actually. And these stories highlight maybe a more direct, emotional kind of help. There's an undated story about him finding a woman on the Brooklyn Bridge. Apparently, she was considering ending her life.
Oh, wow.
He supposedly stopped, talked with her, prayed with her, then gave her a $100 bill.
Just stopped and talked. On the bridge.
That's the claim.
Yeah.
And the story goes, she later framed the bill, said he saved her life. It's presented as this very direct human connection in a moment of crisis.
That's a really powerful image there. Any other examples like that?
Yeah, a couple more. One from 2016. This was apparently before he announced he was running for president. He met a veteran who was really struggling with PTSD.
Okay.
Allegedly sent him a $10,000 check to help with treatment, help the family get stable.
$10,000. Again, a significant amount.
Right. And there's another one, also undated. A New York bus driver saw a woman on a bridge, also in distress, about to jump. The driver stopped, talked her down, saved her.
That driver's a hero.
Absolutely. And the sources claim Trump heard about this and sent that bus driver a $10,000 check and a letter praising his heroism.
So supporting others who intervened in crises, too.
Yeah, it suggests an appreciation for that kind of action and, mental health support.
And wasn't there something connecting this generosity back to his family? Like a longer tradition?
Yes, that's right. They bring up a story from when Donald Trump was still a student. His father, Fred Trump, apparently paid for the rest of a classmate's education after that classmate's father died suddenly.
Okay, Fred Trump did that.
Yeah. And then, the sources claim, Donald Trump continued that promise after he graduated, paid for the other 3 kids in that same family to finish their schooling, too.
So carrying on something his father started.
Exactly. It sort of frames this generosity not just as individual acts, but maybe as a family value he upheld.
Okay. So, taken together, that's quite a catalog of anecdotes, a very specific picture they're painting of private, personal giving across different situations.
Definitely. It's a consistent theme across.
But you mentioned the YouTube source goes, well, a bit broader than just listing good deeds, right? It tries to explain why this counter-narrative exists or why it's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where it gets really interesting because the YouTube source uses these stories as a launchpad for a much bigger argument, almost you could say a conspiracy.
Okay, how so?
It claims the reason for the negative press, the negative narrative about him was intentional because, quote, if people got to see who he actually was, and this seems key, because they could not control him, then he'd be, quote, the most dangerous to the establishment.
Dangerous to the establishment. That's a loaded phrase. Do they define who the establishment or how these good deeds make him dangerous?
Not explicitly in super detail, but the implication is, the powers that be, the status quo. The idea seems to be that his genuine connection to the people, evidenced by these deeds and uncontrollable nature, threaten those entrenched interests.
So the good deeds are proof he's for the people, which scares the establishment.
That seems to be the logic presented, yeah. If people knew this truth, it would undermine the establishment's control.
Okay. And while building him up this way, does this source acknowledge any, criticisms of his personality? Or is it purely positive?
It actually does, which is kind of interesting rhetorically. It throws in lines like, I'm not saying that this man doesn't, he doesn't fill himself every now and then, or Trump doesn't love him some Trump. So it acknowledges the ego.
Right. Acknowledges the perception of ego.
Yeah, but then it immediately pivots back. It says, essentially, despite that, his actions have ultimately been at the benefit of the people that he serves.
So it's like, okay, maybe he has an ego, but look at the results. Look at the good he does.
Exactly. It's a way to sort of neutralize that criticism while keeping the main narrative intact. It even suggests a potential term 2 would be better because he'd be not surrounded by snake, implying past issues were due to bad.
And there's more to it, isn't there? Something about a divine element.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The YouTube source gets quite explicit about that. It states that, quote, the real God, the creator of all of this, allowed him to step into that position.
Allowed him was like a divine appointment.
Yeah.
Chosen.
That's very much the implication. It frames his presidency and by extension his character and actions as part of a larger divinely ordained plan. It adds this whole other layer, beyond just being a good guy. It's about destiny.
That definitely elevates the stakes and the meaning behind these alleged actions for certain lists. Okay, so it builds them up, acknowledges flaws slightly, adds a divine angle. What about the critics? How did the sources talk about people who oppose Trump?
They're pretty blunt about it, actually. Both sources tend to dismiss critics pretty harshly.
How so? What kind of language do they use?
Well, words like losers come up. They suggest critics, especially Vance celebrities, only donate money for publicity, unlike Trump's supposed selfless acts.
So questioning the motives of his opponent.
Right. And the article specifically calls out the liberal media for spreading lies, painting them as deliberately misleading the public about his character.
Okay. And the YouTube source adds more detail there too, right? Mentioning past relationships.
Yeah, it does. It brings up alleged past favors Trump did for, quote, friends in Hollywood or comedians like Whoopi Goldberg. It even mentions him receiving NAACP past.
And the point of bringing that up is
the implication seems to be hypocrisy. Like, these people used to associate with him, benefit, or recognize him, but now they criticize. It suggests their opposition is either selective, forgetful, or maybe opportunistic.
So it's a two-pronged approach. Build up Trump's character with these stories and simultaneously tear down the credibility of those who criticize him.
Exactly. It works to create this narrative bubble where Trump is fundamentally good and his critics are fundamentally flawed or dishonest.
And this all culminates in portraying him as someone who's made huge sacrifices, right?
Yeah, that's a really key theme, especially in the YouTube. It paints him as someone who sacrificed everything. It even emphasizes his age, 80 years old, rough, during his political career, saying he put his life at risk.
Contrasting him with
a typical grandpa, basically, someone who'd be taking a nap instead of fighting these battles. The idea is to highlight his supposed dedication as extraordinary. A profound personal sacrifice made for...
Okay, so wrapping this up then, we've really gone deep into these specific sources today. They present this very clear counter-narrative. The argument is that Donald Trump has this hidden history of private generosity and service.
Right.
We've looked at all those anecdotes, the medical bills, the housing support, the crisis intervention, even the family legacy stuff. And beyond the stories, we saw how the sources frame it all claim about divine purpose, attacks on the media and critics, the idea he's dangerous to the establishment because he's for the people.
Yeah, and it's really striking just how they build that narrative. It's a meticulous collection of personal stories, right, used as evidence.
Right.
They don't just make a claim. They offer this whole catalog of specific examples, and they use those anecdotes to directly challenge the more common, often critical perceptions of his character. It really shows the power of story, how framing individual incidents can try to reshape a whole public image.
Yeah, absolutely does. And it leaves us, and you listening, with something pretty interesting to think about, I think. When we hear these really strong claims about a public figure, especially claims that run so counter to maybe what we hear, what role do these kinds of personal stories, these individual anecdotes, play in how we form our own understanding?
Yeah, well, that's a good question.
How do we weigh these specific, often private examples that sources like these put forward against, the broader public record, the political actions, the mainstream narratives? It's like, well, it's a complex calculation, isn't it? It's something to definitely mull over.